Hello, thanks for joining us and welcome to this week's edition of InFocus Recouched.
It's great to have you with us. Today we're going to find out how to make your pantry more environmentally friendly, and we'll meet a man who describes bikies as temporary Australians.
Oh, I like it. So we've got something for the chicks and the blokes today.
You're chaining women to the kitchen sink again, are we, Kent?
Oh, well, no.
Yeah.
I meant the biker chicks. Yeah, that's what I meant. The biker chicks. And all us men out there, like me, we love cooking. Yeah.
Let's take a look now at an interview focusing on the help that one inspirational man is providing to people we could describe not as temporary Australians, but forgotten Ethiopians.
And it's my privilege to welcome to the studio Mr. Setator Befakadu. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Now, Set, we can call you Set, can't we?
Yes.
Set, you're a mathematics teacher here in Sydney, but you lead a double life, don't you? What's the other part of your life?
During holiday, I just go to Ethiopia and do some prison ministry.
So Ethiopia is the land of your birth, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And how long ago did you come to Australia from Ethiopia?
Almost 32 years ago, I came from Ethiopia.
What brought you to Australia in the first place?
Well, when I came to Australia, my first initial desire was to study theology. When I finished studying theology, I had to go back to Ethiopia, but I couldn't go back because of the communist government.
Now, when I think of Ethiopia we're talking the 80s, aren't we?
Yes.
I think of awful images on my television of famine in Ethiopia at the time, you know, the World Aid, the Live Aid.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Was that happening at that time when you left Ethiopia?
Yes, it was.
And I understand why you would want to leave that sort of situation and come to a country like Australia that's so wealthy, and there's obviously, you know, so many benefits and blessings we have here. Why would you want to go back and keep going back?
My desire was to have education and to study God's Word. And as I study God's Word, I become interested to help others because I came from poor country. So it doesn't give me meaning unless I share what I have. That's what keeps me going, to share.
So for 10 years now, you've been returning to Ethiopia for not just for a short mission trip, but how many weeks do you usually go for?
I go there for almost 2 months.
And again, this is another thing that puzzles me. You know, you would think that you might work with children or, you know, someone who's an innocent victim of some awful circumstance, and instead you choose to work in prisons. Why?
It's a good question. I think by God's providence, I was introduced with a prison ministry friends, and then he took me to visit some prisons, and then I became interested to help.
What are prisons like in Ethiopia?
It was very, 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 very poor. So a lot of prisoners, they didn't have hope, and they were waiting, some of them, to be released after 10, 20 years.
Oh, really?
And they were sitting there doing nothing. So when I saw that, I was really moved to do something. The prisoners, they don't have anything to do.
Yes, yeah,
that's what it strikes me. So I just moved just to do something to keep them busy. So that's my focus.
So what sort of projects have you managed to get the prisoners involved in?
Well, we are focusing, one, on humanitarian aids, like supplying clothes, soaps, and we provide them insecticides because some of the prisons are in hot area, so they need insecticides to kill bugs.
So mosquitoes or?
Mosquito and some other bags.
Mm-hmm. And have you got much support from this ministry from Australia?
Yes, especially my principal, Miss Godwin. We took her to Ethiopia to have a look what we do, and she has seen it, and now she is contributing a lot of things like organizing teachers and students, volunteers, to do cards, gift cards.
And this school that you work in Sydney here, it's not a Christian school, it's a government school?
It's a government school.
Okay. So this is a principal of a government school
that's right.
has been moved by what you're doing and wants to help.
That's absolutely correct.
Wow. What motivates you to keep going back year after year?
Two things. One, the progress. Two, the fruits. The progress.
Such as? Yeah, you tell me.
Before we used to give them what they ask us. But now we taught them you have to do cost sharing and you have to use it as yourself. And now they are giving, they are contributing cost.
So you don't want to create dependence, you want people to become strong and self-sufficient.
Exactly.
So they're ready to be released one day.
Exactly, that's our objective. We are not trying to give them handouts, but we want them to be self-sufficient and to depend on themselves.
Okay, and the fruit?
The fruit, wherever our project is, we see a lot of prisoners working. They buy sewing machine and they start generating their income. So these are the fruits. A lot of prisoners now, they don't depend on us. They just want a little bit of help.
Okay.
Without a little bit of help, they run their own business.
Okay. And do you see, do you share the gospel with any of these prisoners, or do you see them coming to a clearer picture of who God is and the forgiveness He offers for them?
Definitely.
Yeah, okay.
Definitely. When I started to share the gospel, everyone comes because we don't force them or we don't bribe them. We show them love. And they keep coming and they listen to the gospel. That's how I share with them.
Yeah, wow. Well, that's an incredible ministry. If people want to know more about it, you've got a website, haven't you?
Elohe, Ethiopian Prison Ministry, ORG.
Okay, there you go. That addresses are right on your screen. Elio Ethiopian Prison Ministry.org.
That's correct.
Great. Hey, thanks so very much for your time today, Sesator Befakadu.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, may God bless your ministry.
Thank you.
Boy, it's not glamorous mission work, is it? Helping prisoners in developing countries.
Yeah, I think you're right. And even in this country, you just don't see politicians making prison conditions a priority, in election campaigns or whatever. If they say anything at all, it's tough on crime. But apart from that, total silence.
Yeah, that's so true. But didn't Jesus mention visiting prisoners? Whatever you did for the least of these, you did it for me.
Yeah, you're right, he did. There certainly are some pretty amazing Christian ministries out there who do take that seriously. Too few, though, I'd say.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break now. Stay with us. There's more InFocus Recouched coming right up.
We live our lives running around, rarely stopping to ask ourselves where we're going and what our final destination is. In the end, our lives become little more than routine. Step beyond and discover a path that offers comfort, love and hope. Visit hopeoffer.com/step beyond or call 1300 300 389 for your free copy today.
We're going to start with some soybeans. Use some chickpeas, an onion, you have a teaspoon of salt, slice some tomatoes, slice some cucumber, some red onion just to give it a bit of freshness. So just make little falafels like this. They just smell amazing. Let's make our tahini dressing. Let's get in some tomatoes, cucumbers, some falafels. Drizzle some of this lovely dressing. All you need to do is roll it up and you've got a delicious lunch for your family.
Hi, welcome back. Well, heaps of people these days are trying to make food choices that are more environmentally friendly. So this next video featuring Surad has a whole bunch of awesome tips that are well worth checking out.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's take a look. It's just incredible when you think about it that what you eat actually helps not just your body but also the planet. Did you know that Albert Einstein said that if we were to evolve towards a more plant-based diet, we don't just help ourselves, but what do we help?
We help planetary health as well.
Yeah, it's just amazing. Now, you're a scientist, you're a nutritionist, of course, and
yes.
Tell us, how does it work from a nutritionist viewpoint, that what we eat?
Well, scientists have been looking at the impact of food production on all kinds of things, such as greenhouse gas emissions, land use, pesticide use, and even water usage. And what they've shown is that food production is a major aspect to global warming. Major aspect. In fact, they've shown that what you eat has a greater impact on greenhouse gas emissions than total transport combined. So that means planes, trains and automobile. What you eat is more important than even the kind of car you drive in terms of the impact on global warming. And they've also shown that if you look at different types of dietary patterns, James, the more you head towards a plant-based diet, the less impact you have on global warming. In other words, you slow down global warming in your own small way, but it all adds up over time. And foods like, of course, red meat and dairy have been identified as major foods that help to promote global warming. Well,
of course, they've got to feed the vegetables to the animals to produce the meat,
that's right. It's a very inefficient way of eating. So, for example, in Australia, it takes about 20 to 50 kilograms of food to feed the animal to then make 1 kilogram of meat. Whereas we could be eating the food ourselves, directly, the plant food, and benefiting from that and feeding more mouths at the same time.
Now, look, I've got this. So it takes the same water and pesticides, so for argument's sake, to grow the food that we could eat.
Well, actually,
but you've got to do it 50 times as much to get 1 kilo of meat.
But it depends what food you're looking at. But for example, it can take 1,000 times more water to produce a kilo of beef than, say, to produce a kilogram of potatoes.
I can imagine a new slogan: save the Murray and eat more by eating more plants.
And this is why, James, now there are movements around the world recommending that we eat less meat and less dairy, because it's not just good for the body, for chronic disease, fighting chronic diseases, but it's actually better for planetary health. So you would have heard of movements like Meat-Free Mondays or Meatless Mondays, and they're gaining momentum because of the interest in trying to preserve the environment, because we know that since 1987 we've been dipping into the reserves. We're not living in a way that's sustainable anymore, and we need to cut back and try and preserve our planetary health.
And I think Albert Einstein told us this 40 or so years ago, but Sue, how do you do it?
Yeah, well, I think, one, try and eat more plant-based meals, as many as you can. As I've often said, become as much of a vegetarian as you can stand. If not, at least try and nominate 1 day a week where you can go meat-free. I think that helps greatly. The second thing is try and avoid foods that are what scientists call non-core foods. So, for example, in CSIRO in Adelaide, just very recently, they've shown that these non-core foods, you know, the junk food, the fast food, foods that you really don't need for life, actually contribute about 27% to all the greenhouse gas emissions related to food production.
Then you've got the plastic wrap and the
Absolutely, and what do you do with that? You've got to dispose it.
Yeah.
So they're another problem. It's not just meat and dairy. And the third thing you could be doing is looking at using foods that are more seasonal and more locally produced. So learning about what's in season. You know, if this particular fruit's in season now, it's more likely to be locally produced.
Look nice.
You know, buy that instead of the food that's being transported by plane from a country that's thousands of miles away. So these are key things with eating. When it comes to shopping, two very simple tips. Use bags like this. Keep these kind of bags in the boot.
Put your pears and your celery.
That's right. Rather than relying on all those plastic bags that can make. And lastly, reduce wastage. Plan your menu,
Mm-hmm.
plan what you're going to do for the week. If it's realistic, you're only going to cook 3 nights a week, fine. Plan to buy enough just for that, because we know now that about 1/3 of everything we buy at home for food gets chucked out as waste. We need to minimise waste when it comes to food.
Well, thanks so
and
much,
that's
Sue.
going to help greatly for the environment.
To think that we can help our bodies, but we also help the planet. I mean, after I finish this pear, there's not going to be anything left, will there?
Boy, we usually just go about our lives, don't we? You know, eating what we eat. And we never really realise how much we're actually contributing to environmental damage, eh?
Yeah, totally. But it's great that there are simple ways we can do something about it. Some great tips from Sue there. I'm not sure I could take all of them on board, but come on, something is better than nothing, right?
Fair enough. Time for an ad break now. We'll be back in a moment.
So you think you've got your future all planned out, right? Or maybe you're not sure yet what you want to do, who you want to be, but whatever path you choose to study, a great education matters. Because it doesn't just help you get a great job, it helps you prepare for what life can throw at you and live a great life. Avondale. It's education designed for life.
Father, I can't connect the dots through the little that I understand. What words can I say to reach you? How can I know that you are there, listening, hearing, caring? My words are broken, weak, and powerless. But I know your power is limitless. What can I say?
Hi, welcome back. Now, Dora, I'm sure you've realised by now that if I ever get a chance to get a motorcycle into the studio, I'll take it.
Yeah, especially a big Harley with all that chrome. So pretty.
Oh, yeah, you've got that right. But this shiny Harley came with a serious message. Let's take a look. And it's a privilege to welcome to the studio Greg Hurst from the Brotherhood Christian Motorcycle Club. How are you?
Good, thanks, Kent. Real well.
Now, Greg, you brought your bike in here today, and it's a beautiful machine. Can you just introduce us to her? I assume it's a her?
Actually, I don't really assign a sex to it. It's
oh, okay.
It's just an extension of, when you ride a bike for a long period of time, it becomes an extension of yourself. So
sure.
It's a 2007 Softail Harley, and great fun to ride. And they've created a whole range of cruising bikes, Harley these days, so people can ride into an older age.
So how many cc's is this one packing?
Oh, I think around 1,500.
1,500. So that's like a medium-sized car, really, isn't it?
Well, bigger than my daughter's car, yeah. So yeah. It goes, and if I'm going on a long trip, my wife and I and all our gear, it's quite comfortable.
Wow.
It pulls really well.
Okay, so you're involved in a Christian motorcycle club. You're also involved in through that club reaching out to bikers in all sorts of other clubs as well. But the thing that might be surprising to some of our viewers is that you're also a television producer. You've put together this, this is a DVD of Series 1, Temporary Australians. Well, what's all that about?
Well, Temporary Australians is a term which is used in an insulting fashion for riders. There's a couple of negative stereotypes. One is that, you know, we're riding with a death wish, and the other is that we're all antisocial. So when we were tossing around doing a doco series on the good stuff in the bike culture, we came up with Temporary Australians because we thought that was probably the safest term we could use. But it also really captures, I think, a sense of Aussie humour, because we often will embrace insults and criticism, you know, and be proud of it. So Ulysses,
just co-opt them and make them your own.
Yeah, well, look, the Ulysses Club, Motorcycle Club, they're growing old disgracefully, which isn't the case, but they've embraced that sort of humour. And that's what we've done here. It's 2 series we've done so far. We're filming a 3rd, but it's showing the bike culture in its breadth and showing it to be really positive. The vast majority of motorcycle stuff that goes on and doesn't get into the mainstream media is really good, and that's what we tried to capture.
So this has been on free-to-air TV in Australia, hasn't it?
The first series has been on community television in the capital cities around the country.
Okay.
Second series has been on One, which is one of the commercial channels, part of the 10 network.
Yeah, okay.
rated really well the first time they showed it, and which was at the end of last year, and it's going to air again in this part of the year, the 2014, on Sundays about 5:30. So they've given it a good time slot this time round, and then we'll see how it goes. But they're very happy with it, and very happy to have a third series.
Great, excellent. So you mentioned just before about the breadth, the diversity of the bike scene, and you explore that in Temporary Australians. Can you just give us a thumbnail sketch of what you mean by that?
Sure. Well, look, what we tried to do was, starting from the fact that a lot of Australians have a negative view of motorcycling and the culture. We started in the first series by looking at charity rides. One of the events our club helps organise is the federal politicians' motorcycle ride, so we did some stuff on that.
How many of them ride?
It depends on which after which election you catch them.
No,
but there's 5 or 6 at the moment that have been re-elected, plus a bunch of people who are pillions. So they're very supportive down there, and so it's an annual event. The ride is annual, and we've managed to capture that. We also, in the second series, decided to go a little bit broader by looking at some of the more controversial aspects of the motorcycle culture. We filmed some stories for recreational police motorcycling, and we also filmed some stories on recreational outlaw 1% events. So
the 1%, This comes from a famous quote in America, doesn't it, where it was said, 99% of bikers are absolutely fine, it's the 1% you've got to worry about. So now the people identify with this 1%.
Well, look, that was from a problem that occurred in a town in America called Hollister in the early 50s. And that's exactly what happened. There was some trouble, and one of the mainstream motorcycle groups said, that was caused by 1%. And so that term has been embraced. What we did is, because we're a Christian club, in both series we've had Christian stories, so events, testimonies, various things, which we've integrated into the whole package.
And so, how's that gone across? Because, mainstream television is often not a place where you can be, frank and open and positive about your faith.
Well, look, that's true. Community television is a lot more open, so we didn't have any dramas with community television around the country. Now, my co-presenter is Brendan Jones, who's WSFM presenter, radio presenter, Jonesy and Amanda.
It's a station here in Sydney.
That's right, and he's a famous guy. He's got a lot of media contacts, and he convinced One on 10 Network to give us a shot. And so the second series ran there. With those elements, with some Christian stories, some police recreational motorcycling stories, some outlaw events, and we went and visited a clubhouse as well. And some of the social issues like the anti-association laws. So we had that mix, and it rated really well. And Channel 1, we had no negative feedback, and they want us back for a third series. So we're going to continue to do that mix. We think the best way to share the Christian faith is in the context of looking at the breadth of the culture, because we're an aspect of the motorcycle culture. All the Christian clubs are really keen to share the gospel. How we do that is through relationships, and that comes across in the stories people tell, events that we run, and that kind of, it's an interesting balance, I suppose, in the mix of road racing and off-road racing and charity events, all of that, industry events, just showing the breadth of it. What the common denominator is a passion for motorcycling, and hopefully what comes out is a Christian's passion for God.
Yeah, well, and have you received, positive feedback from the program? Or what have the ratings been like?
Well, we've averaged for the first airing of Series 2, we averaged just under 50,000 per episode in the major capitals, which is Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, Adelaide and Perth. They don't have the regional figures, so we think we've done quite a lot better because a lot of motorcycling people in the country. But it's good enough for One to want us back, and no, we haven't had any criticism from them. So I think a lot of people are just very happy to have a doco series that's showing how good motorcycling is and how positive it is out there. There's probably people who could do it a lot better. We do it on a shoestring. And we don't have a studio. We do it all out in the at the events and do all the interviews
out and about. I like it.
At bike shops and at races and clubhouses and at Parliament House, all that sort of stuff. So I guess that really reflects motorcycling, because that's essentially what motorcycling is an outdoor event.
Greg, some of our viewers aren't watching from Australia. Are they able to access this series, via the internet? Have you got a website or something
Yeah,
like that?
look, temporaryaustralians.com.au.
Yep.
People can get a link to Vimeo, which has Series 1 and Series 2, which people can rent or buy, individual episodes or the whole series. And you can get a link to my personal website where you can buy the DVDs Series 1. So
Okay. Well, there you
all
go.
of those things are possible.
All right, so there you go. You heard that website, temporaryaustralians.com.au. Check it out. And thanks so much for your time, Greg. Really appreciate it.
No
And
worries. Thanks, Greg.
safe and happy riding.
I think they actually overturned those anti-bikie laws in Queensland last year, or at least softened them a bit. Greg Hurst would have been really happy about that.
Yeah, no doubt. But I guess a lot of his concerns are broader than just those laws. He really sees these bikies as being at the margins of society, like, any minority culture, I guess.
Except these guys choose that culture, so I think it's a bit different.
Yeah. Good point, I guess. Well, it looks like our time is up for this week. Thanks so much for joining us on InFocus Recouched.
Yeah, have an awesome week. God bless. We'll see you next time.
I never thought I'd be in a war zone, but here I am. There are 30 wars on the planet every year. Every hour, the world spends about $100 million on soldiers, ammunition, and the war machine. In fact, the world spends 80 times more money on the military than it will cost to provide basic water and sanitation for the entire world's population. So I'm pretty safe in saying that our world is a battlefield. But the Earth's battles are just part of the cosmic war. I'm in it, and so are you, whether you like it or not.
To receive a free DVD of the documentary Beyond Conflict, visit hopeoffer.com/conflict or call 1300 300 389.